Malignant self-love, narcissism revised. Uniqueness and intimacy. Uniqueness and intimacy are strong rivals. Intimacy implies a certain uniqueness of one's partner with privileged information. Yet, it is exactly such partial or wholly withheld information that partners one's senses of superiority, uniqueness, and mystery, which inevitably vanishes with disclosure and intimacy. Additionally, intimacy is a common and universal pursuit. It does not confer uniqueness on its seeker. When you get to know people intimately, they all seem unique to you. Personal idiosyncrasies service with intimate acquaintance. Intimacy makes unique beings out of us all. It therefore negates the self-perceived uniqueness of the truly and exclusively unique, the narcissist. Finally, the very process of getting intimate creates false sensations of uniqueness. Two people getting to intimately know each other are made unique to one another. These traits of intimacy negate the narcissist notion of uniqueness. Intimacy may help distinguish us from our loved ones, but it also makes us common and indistinguishable to all others. Put crassly, if everyone is distinct, then no one is unique. Widespread acts of behaviors are anathema to the uniqueness. Intimacy eliminates information asymmetries, obviates superiority, and demystifies it. The narcissist does his damnedest to avoid intimacy. He constantly lies about every aspect of his life, his self, his history, his violation, and avocations, and his emotions. This false data guarantee his informative lead, asymmetry, or advantage in his relationships. It fosters disintimidation and it casts a pall of cover-up, separateness, mystery over the narcissist affairs, and more. The narcissist lies even in therapy. He obscures the truth by using psychobabble or professional lingo. It makes him feel that he belongs, that he is a Renaissance man. By demonstrating this control of several professional jargons, he almost proves to himself that he is superhuman. In therapy, this has the effect of objectifying and emotional detachment. The narcissist behavior is experienced by his mate as frustrating and growth cramping. To live with him is akin of living with an emotionally absent non-entity or with an alien, a form of artificial intelligence. The partners of the narcissist often complain of overwhelming feelings of imprisonment and punishment. The psychological source of this kind of behavior could well involve transference. Most narcissists fall prey to unresolved conflicts with their primary objects, parents or caregivers, especially with the parent of the opposite sex. The development of the narcissist intimacy skills is hindered at an early stage. Punishing and frustrating the partner or spouse is a way of getting back to the abusive parent. It is a way of avoiding the narcissist injury brought on by inevitable abandonment. The narcissist, it seems, is still the hurt child. His attitude serves as a paramount need not to be hurt again. The narcissist anticipates his abandonment and by trying to avoid it, he participates it. Maybe he does it to demonstrate that having been the cause of his own abandonment, he is in sole and absolute control of his own relationships. To be in control, this unconquerable drive is a direct reaction to having been abandoned, ignored, neglected, avoided, smothered, or abused at an early stage in life. Never again vows the narcissist. If anyone will do the living, it will be me. The narcissist is devoid of empathy and incapable of intimacy with others as well as with himself. To him, lying is a second nature. A false self takes over. The narcissist begins to believe his own lies. He makes himself to be what he wants to be and not what he really is. The narcissist life is a jumbled amalgam of cold facts, events, difficulties, negative externalities, and predictions and projections. He prefers his objective and quantifiable mode of relating to the world to the much disclaimed touchy freely alternative. The narcissist is also afraid of the cesspool of negative emotions inside him that he would rather deny them and thus refrain from knowing himself. The narcissist is predisposed to maintaining asymmetric relationships where both preserves and exhibits his superiority. Even with his mate or spouse, he is forever striving to be the guru, the lecturer, the teacher, even the mystic, the psychologist, the experienced elder. The narcissist never talks, he lectures. He never moves, he poses. He is patronizing, condensing, forgiving, posturing, or teaching. This is the more benign form of narcissism. In its more malignant variants, the narcissist is extorting, humiliating, sadistic, impatient, and full of rage and indignation. He is always critical and torments all around him with endless, bitter cynicism and with displays of disgust and repulsion. There is no way out of the narcissist cut. The narcissist despises the submissive and fears the independent, the strong, who constitutes a threat, that is, and the weak, who are by definition despisable. Asked to explain his lack of ability to make contact to make contact in the true sense of the word, the narcissist comes up with a host of superbly crafted explanations. These are bound to include some objective difficulties which have to do with the narcissist traits, his history, and the characteristics of his environment, both human and non-human. The narcissist is the first to admit the difficulties experienced by others in trying to adapt or relate to him. To his mind, these difficulties make him unique and explain a way to gap between his grandiose theories about himself and the grey, shabby pattern that is his life, the grandiosity gap. The narcissist has no doubt who should adapt to whom. The world should adjust itself to the narcissist's superior standards and requirements, and thus incidentally transform itself into a better place. Inevitability, the sexuality of the narcissist. The sexuality of narcissist is disturbed as is emotional landscape. We distinguish three types of sexual communicators, and hence the same number of modes of sexual communication. Number one, the emotional sexual communicator is first attracted sexual to his potential mate. It then proceeds to examine how compatible they are, and only then does he fall in love to have sexual intercourse. He forms a relationship that is based on a perception of the other as a whole, as an amalgam of attributes and traits, good and bad. His relationship lasts reasonably long and they disintegrate as incremental changes in the psychological makeup of the two parties encroach upon their mutual appreciation and create emotional deficiencies and hunger, which can be satisfied only by resorting to new partners. The transactional sexual communicator first examines whether he and the prospective mate are mutually compatible. If he finds compatibility, he proceeds to test the mate sexually and then forms habits, which put together present a fair semblance of love, though a dispassionate one. He forms relationships with people he judges to be reliable partners and good friends. Only a modicum of desire and passion is added to this brew, but its metal is usually very strong and relationships formed on this base are the longest. Number 1. The purely sexual communicator is first attracted sexually to his potential mate rather. It then proceeds to sexual explore and test the counterparty. This interaction leads to the development of an emotional correlate, partly the result of a forming habit, and this communicator has the shortest, most distrust relationships. It treats his mate as he would an object or a function. His problem is a saturation of experiences, and as any addict does, he increases the dose of sexual encounters as he proceeds, and this tends to severely destabilize his relationships. Okay, a summary table of summary or summary table. Types of communicators. Types of communicators stroke characteristics. Purely sexual, and the other side is emotional sexual. Transactional, strength of relationship, weak alternation, strong motivation, low stimulus threshold. Medium, emotion decays, new, strong, stimulus required. Strong, rare compatibility ensures negative results of severance of relationship. Main plan and the means of examination: physical, looks, scents, colors, voice, sex. Emotional, interaction, introspection, and observation. Compatibility, preferences, options, opinions rather, sex, future plans, and conversations. Filtering, sex emotion compatibility, emotion sex compatibility, compatibility sex emotion, compromise zones, compatibility, fragility of relationships, compatibility, equilibrium between emotion and compatibility upstage during the decay of a relationship. Sex, sexual compromises do not affect compatibility with emotions. Control, regulation, and examination. Access, external, to human bodies, sexual technique. Internal, external, bodily contact, another way to express emotions. Internal, decay pattern. Interest when alternative found, emotional predictability, ennui, decay of interest, alternative found, change in determining parameter of member of the couple, plane of interaction, conscious, bodily parameters, signal communication, near conscious and unconscious, mixed bodily and verbal parameters, mixed signal and verbal communication, conscious verbal parameters, verbal communication, types of communicators: primary, sexual, secondary, emotional, primary, emotional, secondary. sexual or transactional, very rare indeed. Primary, transactional. Secondary, sexual or emotional, rare indeed. The narcissist is almost always the purely sexual communicator. This obviously is a gross oversimplification. Still, it provides insights into the mating mechanism of the narcissist. The narcissist is usually infantile, either because of a fixation, a pregenital or genital, or due to unresolved or multiple conflicts. The narcissist tends to separate the sexual from the emotional. It can have a lot of great sex as long as it is devoid of emotional content. The narcissist's sexual life is likely to be highly irregular or even abnormal. It sometimes leads a sexual life with a partner who is merely a platonic friend. And this is the result of what I call approach avoidance infantilism. There are grounds to believe that many narcissists are latent homosexuals. Conversely, there are grounds to believe that many homosexuals are repressed or outright pathological narcissists. At the extreme, homosexuality may be a private case of somatic, that is a narcissism. The homosexual makes love to himself and loves himself in the form of same gender objects. The narcissist treats others as objects. His meaningful, other performs ego. Substitution functions for the narcissist. This is not love. Indeed, the narcissist is incapable of loving anyone, especially not himself. In his relationship, the narcissist is hard pressed to maintain both continuity and availability. He promptly develops acutely felt saturation points, both sexual and emotional. He feels shackled and trapped and escapes either physically or by becoming emotionally and sexually absent. Thus, one way or the other, he is never there for his significant other. Moreover, he prefers sex with objects or object representations. Some narcissists prefer masturbations, objectifying their body or reducing it to a penis. Group sex, fetish sex, paraphilias, or pedophilia to normal sex. The narcissist treats his mate as a sex object or a sex slave, often a verbal or emotional and physical abuser. He tends to mistreat his partner sexually as well. This separation of the emotional from the sexual makes it typical for the narcissist to have sex with people that he believes that he loves, though he never really does love. He is terrified and repelled by other ideas that he has to objectify the subject of his emotions. He separates his sexual objects from his emotional patterns, as they can never be the same people. The narcissist is thus conditioned to deny his nature as a purely sexual communicator, and a cycle of frustration, aggression is set in motion. Narcissists brought up by conservative parents who castigated that is a sex as dirty and forbidden adopt the ways of the transactional communicator. They tend to look for someone stable to set up a home with, but this negates their true repressed nature. True partnership, a veritable, by the way, a veritable, equitable transaction does not allow for the objectification of the partner. To succeed in a partnership, the two partners must share an insightful and multidimensional view of each other. Strengths and weakness, fears and hopes, joy and sadness, needs and choices of the narcissist is incapable. So, he feels inadequate, frustrated, and consequently fearful that he might be abandoned. Abandonment is in his heart. It transforms the internal turmoil into deep-seated aggression. Once in a while, the conflict reaches critical levels, and the narcissist fits to rage, emotionally deprives the partner or humiliates him, her or him. Acts of avoidance, verbal or physical, and are not uncommon indeed, by the way. The narcissist position is untenable and unenviable. It knows, albeit it normally represses this information that his partner disagrees with being treated as an object sexually or emotionally. Merely gratifying the narcissist does not form an edifice for a long-lasting relationship. But the narcissist is entire need of stability and emotional certainty. He graves not to be abandoned or abused again. So he denies his nature in a desperate plea to cheat both himself and his partner. He pretends and sometimes he succeeds in misleading himself into believing that he is interested in a true partnership. He really does his best, careful not to broach touchy issues, always consulting the partner in making decisions and so on. But inside, but inside, he helplessly growing up resentment and frustrations. Yeah. Inside, he harbors growing resentment and frustration. His lone wolf nature is bound to manifest itself sooner or later. This conflict between the act the narcissist puts on in order to secure the longevity of his relationship and his true character is likely more often than not to result in an eruption. The narcissist is bound to become aggressive if not violent. The shift from benevolent lover partner to a raging maniac, adhered daily and idea effect is terrifying. Gradually, the trust between the partners is shattered and the way to the narcissist worth fears, abandonment, emotional desolation and the dissolution of the relationship is paved by the narcissist himself. It is this sorry paradox. The narcissist is the instrument of his own punishment that comprises the essence of narcissism, and the narcissist is specifically doomed to repeat the same cycle of pretension, wrath, and hatred. The narcissist is afraid to introspect, had he done so, he would have discovered both dismaying and comforting truths. He indeed of no one. He indeed is in need of no one on a long-term basis. Other people are to him just short-term solutions. Avid protestations to the contrary notwithstanding, the narcissist is expedient and exploitive in his relationship. Denying this, he often marries for the wrong reasons: to claim his troubled soul, to pacify himself by conforming socially. But the narcissist does not need companion or emotional support, let alone through partnership. There is no breast on earth more self-sufficient than a narcissist. Years of unpredictability in his relationships with meaningful others, early on abuse, sometimes dictates a violence, aggressions, dictates sometimes decades of violence, aggressions, instability, and humiliations have eroded the narcissist's trust in others to the point of disappearance. The narcissist knows that he can rely only on one stable and conditional source of love and nurturance on himself. True, when in need of reassurance, e.g., in crisis or situations, the narcissist seeks friendship. But while normal people seek friends for companion and support, the narcissist uses up his friends the way the sick consume medication on the hungry food. The way the sick consume medication or the hungry food. Here, here too, a basic pattern emerges to the narcissist. Other people are objects to be used and tossed away. Here too, it proves discontinuous and unavailable. Moreover, the narcissist can make do with very little. If he has a spouse, why should he seek the added burden of friends? Other people to the narcissist, by the way, are what a yoke is to the ox, a burden. He cannot fathom a reciprocity in human relations. He is easily bored with other people's lives, the problems and solicitations. The need to maintain his relationship drains him. Having fulfilled their functions by listening to the narcissist, by asking his advice in an ego-inflating manner, by admiring him, others would do best to vanish until they are needed again. The narcissist feels encumbered when asked to reciprocate. Even the most basic human interactions requires a display of his grandiosity and consumes time and energy in careful, dramatic preparations. The narcissist himself, the narcissist limits his social encounters to situations which yields net energy contribution. Narcissist supply, that is, interacting with others involves the expenditure of energy, and narcissists are willing to oblige on condition that they are able to extract narcissist supply: attention, adulation, celebrity, and sex, sufficient to outweigh the energy they had expended. Lazima kuwa na faida yani. This perpetuum mobile cannot be maintained for long. The narcissist millennial are really entangled, feels drained and bored, and its social cycle dwindles. When this happens, the narcissist springs to life and, using the vast resources of his undeniable personal charm, it recreates a social cycle, knowing full well that it, in due course, will also take its leave and dissolve in disgust. The narcissist is either terrified by the thought of tyranny or absolutely fascinated by it. A child, after all, is the ultimate source of narcissist supply. It is unconditionally adoring, worshipping, and submissive, but it is also a demanding thing, and it tends to divert attention from the narcissist. A child devours time, energy, emotions, resources, and attention. The narcissist can easily be converted to the view that a child is a competitive menace, a nuisance, utterly unnecessary. This makes for a very shaky foundation of marital life. The narcissist does not need to or seek companionship or friendship. It does not mix sex and emotions. He finds it hard to make love to someone that he loves. He ultimately abhors his children and tries to limit and confine them to their role of narcissist supply sources rather. He is a bad friend, lover, and father, and he is likely to divorce many times if he never gets married. If he ever gets married, and to end up in a series of monogamous if he is liberal, or polygamous if he is somatic relationships. Most narcissists had a functioning parent, but one that was indifferent to them and used them for his or her own narcissistic ends. Narcissists tend to breed narcissists and perpetuate their condition. The conflict with the frustrating parent is carried forward to reconstructed in an intimate relationship. The narcissist deflects all the major transformations of aggressions towards his spouse, partner, and friends. He hates to admit it, supplements and explodes in an occasional outburst of rage. The more intimate the relationship, the more the other party has to lose by severing it. And the more dependent the narcissist partner is on the relationship and on the narcissist, the more likely is the narcissist to be aggressive, hostile, envious, and hating rather. This serves a dual function as an outlet for pent up aggression and as a kind of test contained below. By the way, this article appears in my book that I've written. You can access it from Self-Love, The Narcissism Revisited. You can click somewhere on your website. If you access my site on www.velexpword.com, you can get my ebook straight away. That makes the end of this tutorial. Maybe just a small point here that I want to emphasize. The narcissist is putting meaningful people in his life to a constant test. Will they accept him as he is, however obnoxious? In other words, do people love him for what he is really, or are they infatuated with the image that he elaborately projects? The narcissist cannot understand or believe that, as far as normal people go, the difference between who they really are and their public persona is negligible. In his case, the gap between the two is so substantial that he resorts to extreme means to ascertain which of the two do people around him really love, or rather, who is it that they profess to love, the false self of the real person. The fact that people chose to hang on to their relationships with him despite his intolerant behavior proves to the narcissist his uniqueness and That is to narcissist is uniqueness and superiority. The narcissist aggression thus serves to reassure him. When it doesn't have access to willing victims, the narcissist indulges in fantasies of unmitigated aggression and sadism. He might find himself identifying with figures of outstanding cruelty in human history or with periods which prevent peaks of human degradation. So the narcissist intimate relationships are fraught with ambivalent and contradictions: love, hate, well-wishing, and envy, fear of being abandoned with a wish to be left alone, control freakery, and paranoid fears of persecution. The narcissist psyche is torn and in all pervasive conflict which never ceases to torment him regardless of external or extenuating circumstances. We can build a mental map. Number one, where we get bad, unpredictable, inconsistent, threatening object leads to defective internalization, introjection of bad objects, and to an unresolved obtainable conflict, damaged object relations, aggressions, envy, hatred, low self-esteem, fear that these emotions will erupt, narcissist defense mechanism, replacing of all emotions, good and bad, to the self object. Compensatory functions, reduction of negative emotions at the self, grandiosity, fantasies, avoidance of emotional situations, uniqueness, demands adulation, deserve, entitlement, intellectual compensation, exploitativeness, envy, lack of empathy, acuteness, objectification of the other, formation of false self, that is FS, false self, defective interpersonal relationships, transference relationships, narcissist supply sources, NSSS, fear that the potential meaningful other external reinforcements or of FS, number one, will invoke deep emotions and provoke negative ones. Number two, fear abandonment results of malnourished true self, TS, true self. Number three, narcissist vulnerability, true self, TS. A, negation of uniqueness. B, ego hurt when abandoned. Anhedonia and dysphoria, feeling of annulment, disintegration of TS, that is fear of exposure, condemnation, persecution. FS, ego dystonia, that is stress, ego dystonia. The above mental map includes the three basic building blocks of the soul of a typical narcissist: the true self, the false self, and the narcissist sources of supply. Narcissism is a direct result of the aggression of the narcissist experience in early life. To better understand the narcissist intimate relationship, we must first analyze the facet narcissism aggressions. Emotions are indistinct. They form part of human behavior. Interactions with other people provide a framework and organizational structure into which emotions fit nicely. Emotions are organized by object relations to the libido, the positive pole, or to aggression, which is negative and associated with hurt. Anger, the basic emotional underlying aggression, is as it fluctuates, it is transformed. Genres like it has two faces, hatred and envy. The libido has sexual excitation and as its basic emotions, and it is an ancient tactile remembrance of the mother's skin and the warm feeding of smell of her breasts that provoke this excitement. Serious indeed. Some important, so important are these early experiences that an early age pathologies of object relations, a traumatic experience, physical or psychological abuse, abandonment, move aggression to a dominant position over the libido. Whenever aggression rules over libidinal drives, we have psychopathology. The emotional twins, libido and aggression, are inseparable. They characterize all references of the self to an object, and a wall of emotionally invested object relation is formed with each such reference. The dynamic unconscious is made of basic mental experiences which are rarely idealic relations between self-representations and object representations in either of the two contexts, allegations or rage. A subconscious fantasy of emerging or an unification of the self and the object prevails in symbolic relationships, both in europhobic moods and in aggressive and wrathful ones. Anger, as evolutionarily and adaptive functions, it is intended to alert the individual to a source of pain and irritation and to motivate him to eliminate it. It is the beneficial outcome of frustrations and pain. It is also instrumental in the removal of barriers of the satisfaction of needs. As most sources of bad feelings are human, aggressions in the form of rage is directed at human, bad objects, people around us who are perceived by us to be deliberately frustrating our wishes to satisfy our needs. At the farthest end of this range, we find the will and wish to make much of frustrating objects suffer. But such desire is a different ball game. It combines aggression and pleasure, therefore it is sadistic.